Hi everyone, this is a special video because I want to cover a subject suggested by one of my subscribers where he wanted to see positional sacrifices in action. The basic idea of a positional sacrifice is to give material for piece activity. This is all you have to know. I'm kidding, just a bit, but this is the main idea of a positional sacrifice. Also, it's very important to evaluate any position based on material and piece activity. If we have in mind that piece activity is the most important thing, we are set for searching and doing sacrifices. When we sacrifice material, there are cases when we get an immediate or a long-term advantage. Some of these advantages would be to open opponent king defense and mate him, open lines and diagonals for our rooks and bishops by sacrificing a pawn, create weaknesses in opponent camp like double pawns, isolated pawn, or expose enemy king. This is the case where we sacrifice a piece, not allowing our opponent to castle or ruin his defense in front of him when he is castled. And fourth, in an endgame we can sacrifice in order to create a pass pawn and promote, and this is one of the correct plans in an endgame. And another case is related to rooks in position with pawn chains. We know that rooks need open lines, but pawn chains makes them to look bad. That's why a good idea is to sacrifice the rook for a minor piece. The next question is how to find these sacrifices. In order to find positional sacrifices, you need to find all forcing moves in opponent camp, and for this you need to divide the board into parts in your head. Look at every piece that you have and try to move it forward, even if the move looks bad at the first sight. When you start looking deeply at every candidate move, you'll realize quickly if a move is good or not. Forcing moves are checks, captures, and attacking moves. In this video I want to show you a game played by Carlsen where he sacrificed a piece in the middle game in order to weaken opponent king defense, and after this he continued to attack with every move, opening more lines toward black king with more sacrifices, and he mated his opponent. So let's see this example where Carlsen started with e4, c6, and this is the Caro-Kann opening, d4, d5, knight to c3, d takes on e4, knight takes, bishop to f5, attacking the knight, knight to g3, attacking the bishop, bishop to g6, h4, trying to trap the bishop, h6, knight to f3, knight to d7, h5, bishop to a7, bishop to d3, bishop takes, queen takes, e6, preparing development of darker bishop, bishop to f4, and white developed his last minor piece, knight g to f6, long castle, white finishes opening, bishop to e7, and white needs to start attacking black position, and for this he improved the activity of his pieces, and he played knight to e4, queen to a5, attacking a2, king to b1, short castle, black opening is done, and white needs to go forward, and knight takes on f6 is a good option because after black recaptured this knight, white can jump with the other knight to e5. So we had knight takes, knight to e5, rook a to d8, placing the rook on the same file with white queen, queen to e2, c5, pressuring d4 pawn for a second time, but this move cut the communication of black queen with the king side. In this position, white needs to continue his attack. He needs to move his pieces forward in enemy camp and attack. Let's try to apply our system thinking that I've told you in the beginning of the video and try to find all forcing moves in black territory. Forcing moves are checks, captures, and attacking moves. Looking at all the pieces, we can see that there is no check with any of the pieces. We have no captures with the queen or the rooks. The bishop can take on h6, but this is not good. He's losing a piece. Even if he's ruining black defense, black is able to defend. With the knight, we can see two forward moves, knight to f7 and knight to g6. Of course, these two moves looks bad because we are giving material, but we just have to look closely and calculate them and see if these moves look good or not. Let's take a look at the first one with knight takes on f7, rook takes on f7, queen takes on a6. So white has 2 pawns for the sacrifice piece. Rook takes on d4, black recovers 1 pawn. Bishop to e5, rook takes on d1, rook takes, queen to a6, trying to exchange queens. Queen takes, b takes on a6, and black is a piece up in this position, so this line is not good for black. Now let's see the other option with knight to g6. Of course, this is a piece sacrifice, and with this move white attacks the bishop and the rook, and if black takes the knight, white can take on e6 with check, and after the king moves, white will take the pawn, and in the end the bishop and the rook will look at a6 pawn. So in our case we have a sacrifice that weakens black king position. What other options white has beside this knight to g6? One option would be to go with the bishop to e3, defending the pawn. Another option is to go with the bishop to d2, attacking the queen, or take on c5. But all these 3 options that I've showed you now are defensive. They are not attacking moves, and our thinking process should be focused on attack. First of all, in the game black played this move, knight to g6, and black accepted the sacrifice and took the knight. Better for black, instead of taking the knight, was to play rook f to e8, defending the bishop, and white will take this bishop, d takes, rook takes on d7, rook takes, bishop to e3, defending the pawn, queen to b4, f3, knight to d5, attacking the bishop, queen to d3, not allowing black to take, queen to a4, queen to d4, trying to exchange queens, and this position is equal. So rook f to e8 was a better choice for black. But in the game black accepted white's sacrifice and he took the knight. White took the pawn with check, king to h8, and here white, we can see that he can take the bishop or he can take the pawn. If white decided to take this bishop, we would have knight to d5 attacking the queen, counter-attacking black queen, knight takes, bishop takes on a5, attacking the rook, b6, bishop to e1, defending the pawn, g takes, h takes, and position is equal. In the game white played a better move. He took the pawn on g6, which is very good because this move opens more lines toward the enemy king, and this is one of the rules when we attack. And with this move white is threatening to take the pawn with the bishop and then deliver mate with the rook. That's why in the game black continue with knight to g8, defending the pawn from h6. Another way for black, instead of this move, was to try to exchange queens. In this position white forces are pressuring black, and he should continue to increase this pressure even more. Let's try to use our thinking system and find all forcing moves in this position. With the queen white can take on g8, but this is not good, it's just losing material. With the rook white can take on h6, giving check, and another option is to take this pawn with the bishop. Let's calculate the first option since it's the most forcing one. Rook takes on h6, check, knight takes on h6, bishop takes, queen to b6, trying to exchange queens, queen takes on e7, queen takes on g6, bishop to e3, c takes, rook takes on d4, queen to f6, trying to exchange queens, queen to e4, and black neutralize white attack. So rook takes on h6 is not working. Let's see the second candidate move, and the one played in the game, bishop takes on a6. Black cannot take with the knight because he's mated after rook takes, g takes on a6, queen to e7, and black cannot stop queen to h7 mate. So in the original position, black has to take with the pawn. So g takes on h6, and in this case the 7 was open and white would like to take the bishop and then deliver mate on h7. And with this in mind, white next move is obvious. He took on h6, sacrificing another piece in order to distract the defender of e7. So knight takes, queen takes on e7, and black has two options to stop the mate, to place the rook on f7 or the knight. Let's see what happens if black puts the rook on f7, g takes on f7, queen to b6, f8 queen, rook takes, queen to f8 check, king to h7, queen to e7 check, king to h8, d takes on c5, attacking the queen, queen to g6, queen to f8 check, king to h7, rook to d7 check, knight to f7, rook takes, queen to f7, and black is losing. So instead, black blocked the mate with knight to f7, white took the knight, and we can see that black is a rook up, but his queen is out of the game. White has to continue his attack with force and finish black very soon. Black continue with king to g7, moving the king away from the h file, and we see that white has no attacking move in this position. So when attacking moves are not working, we need to improve the activity of the other pieces. White only piece that needs to be improved is the rook from d1, and white played rook to d3, intending to come to g3 and give a check. Black tried to parry this check with rook to d7. Better was to bring the queen into the game with queen to b6 and give the queen back and have two rooks for a queen, but even so he's lost. For example, after queen to b6, rook to g3, queen to g6, rook takes, king takes, g4, and we can see that black rooks are paralyzed. This rook cannot take here because this one is lost, so white can push his pawns forward and mate black king. In the game, after rook to g3, black continue with rook to d6. Then we had rook to g3 check, rook to g6 blocking the check, queen to e5 check, king takes on f7, queen to a5 check, rook to f6, and this is a blunder. We can see that the g file is controlled by the rook, and white queen delivers mate on d7. So in this game we saw Carlsen sacrificing a piece in the middle game in order to weaken opponent king, and after this he continued to attack with every move, opening more lines toward black with more sacrifices, and his attack succeeded. So this was the first part of several videos related to positional sacrifice. I hope you found this video useful. Please watch other games from my channel and leave some comments and suggestions in the comment section. See you next time. Bye.